Good morning, gorgeous. How are you doing today? I hope you're having a great day so far. Welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Michelle Dav, and I'm so happy that you clicked on this video and you're joining me to talk about this very important issue, which is how to heal your marriage. If you clicked on this, then I know that you are in a place where you are vulnerable enough to want to hear this information in hopes that your marriage can be healed, your marriage can be saved, that there is hope for change in your marriage. And this is a very important topic, not just to me, but to God, because marriage means so much to Him. And the Lord really does want to heal marriages. People are looking for hope with marriage because marriage can just be so daunting sometimes, and sometimes there just seems to be no place to go. And I'm grateful because I have been putting out quite a bit of marriage content lately, and I have been hearing so many women reaching out to me and telling me that through this content, God has actually been healing their marriages, changing their lives in terms of how they think about their husband and how they act in the home. Things are actually happening, and I want you to tap into that today. Open up your mind, allow God to speak to you personally about your personal situation, and invite Him to your marriage. Invite Him to touch it, to heal it, to revive it, to save it, to give you what you need to be the beautiful wife that He created you to be, and to manage whatever is going on in your home with your husband. So I want you to go ahead and sit back, relax, deep breath, get something to drink, get something to write with, and let's talk about this. If you take nothing else away from this message, what I want you to take away from this is don't give up on your marriage. Do not give up on it. There is always hope for change. Even if your marriage has been going down the drain and you think that it is completely in shambles and it could never be revived, it absolutely can. It does not matter how long you've been married, 42 years or 23 months. It doesn't matter. You can experience change and healing in your marriage. Don't give up on your marriage. So today I want to talk about 7 things that you can consider doing that can heal your marriage. The first thing that we're going to talk about is you actually talking about that thing, talking about that thing. In every marriage, there are things that happen that eventually cause there to be a rift or some pain. It can be something major, like a major event. It could be an adultery type of situation. It can be a very serious event that just shifted the marriage. Or it could just be one of those things that's like an underlying problem that just always seems to happen, like the way that you speak to him, the attitude that you have, or the lack of trust, or other like smaller things that are a little bit more difficult to pinpoint. But it's hovering over your marriage. It's literally just like a dark cloud that follows every single day and every single interaction. Or maybe it just comes sometimes, but it's enough to just set you backwards in your feelings. Those conversations need to happen. A lot of married couples do not talk about that thing. And maybe because that thing is so incredibly painful, maybe you want to move away from it because you feel like if you talk about it, it can actually make the marriage worse. Maybe that thing is something that you have not actually admitted is a problem. Maybe the problem is actually something you are doing and your husband has told you about this. It comes up in every argument, but you're not willing to face it and change it, like your attitude. And I know this sounds very trivial, like my attitude, but your attitude is everything. Your attitude is literally what drives the home. And this can be your normal daily attitude, like just being in an irritable space, or this can be your attitude when there is a problem. Your attitude when you're having a conversation with him, the way that you move your body, roll your eyes, look around, the way that you insult him or bring up negative things from the past. This can be something that you know is a problem from other people in your life, but you just won't deal with it. You need to talk about whatever that issue is. And this could be something that you talk about face to face. This can be an issue where you talk about it with a therapist. This can be something that you write down. Like you can actually write your husband a letter or send him a long voice note or send him a text message detailing that you are going to change, that you have considered this thing and you're willing to make a shift. But if it's something that he did, something that you don't need to apologize for, it still needs to be talked about. If he had a child with someone outside of the marriage, it still needs to be talked about. If he has been sending money to some college student and you don't really know what happened, but you know that he's doing something shady, it needs to be talked about. Even if it's done, it's done and over with. You guys have already had the whole blow up. It needs to be talked about because these are the things that create rifts in marriage. If you have been spending too much and it's depressing your husband because he's not able to keep up with the finances, it needs to be talked about. You may have to actually just be honest and say, honey, I really want to do better. I want to stop shopping so much and spending money in ways that I don't need to be spending. And I want to just be more supportive, but I don't know how. I can't stop. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. I need help. A lot of times it's just you opening yourself up in that vulnerable way, acknowledging that this is part of the reason the family is crashing, the marriage is crashing, and asking him for help. Men actually love being asked to help. So it actually does make him feel good that you are honest enough to say you need help. And then you can actually get the help. And he knows it's not hidden anymore. It's not a secret. But more than anything, have the conversation. Talk about the thing that needs to be talked about. Only you know what that thing is in your marriage. Have the conversation. Be brave enough to talk about it by spending time with God and allowing him to strengthen you and encourage you to go there and talk to your husband. The second way that you can bring healing to your marriage is through forgiveness. This is actually the pillar as to why people are not able to really have the love that they once had. It's because of an offense. Something happened that shifted the marriage and shifted your trust. And there has not been real, true forgiveness. Some things that your husband may have done seem completely unforgivable, and you can't even imagine how you could actually forgive him. Some of these things may seem minor to some people and major to others. There could have been something as serious as an accidental death. This is life. Things happen. And are you able to get past such a horrific situation to forgive your husband? I mean, that's major. But forgiveness is what sets you free and is what sets the marriage free to be able to thrive again. If you're still holding on to that offense, you're still holding on to that pain. My question is, what is it that you want? What are you actually looking for? Are you looking for your husband to just say sorry? Are you looking for your husband to really be sorry? Are you looking for your husband to go back in time and just not do it? Because we all know that's impossible. So think about, what is it that you actually want from your husband when it comes to forgiveness? At this point, what can he do? And if he did it, would it actually change you? Would it actually change the marriage? But the forgiveness is not for him only. The forgiveness is for him partially because he sometimes may actually want to hear you say it and want to know that he's forgiven, because sometimes because he feels like you haven't forgiven him, he cannot be comfortable in the marriage. He's still walking on eggshells. He's still trying to prove to you that he is a certain kind of person. Or maybe he just feels like he's trapped. He's made a mistake, but he's still in the marriage. So he can't really get your love, but he still has to be your husband. He doesn't really know what to do, how to behave around you. He doesn't know what he's going to say or do that's going to set you off. So he's just so uncomfortable. And because he's so uncomfortable and you're still holding a grudge, you're both miserable. And where else can you go? You have only one another. Where else can you go? That has to be fixed. You forgiving him is also important to God because God asks us to forgive one another. This is actually something he commands us to do. And this is not because you want to or you feel like it, but it's because God said to. And we don't know why spiritually it's important, because We live in a spiritual world. So whatever we are doing, we're doing these acts, but it's changing something in the spirit world, which is directly affecting your reality right now. Directly. So if there is something that we don't know about, which there are so many things we don't know about, but you're just thinking it's just all in the natural, you're just so focused on what you can see and feel, and you're not observant of the fact that these things shift realities for you in the spirit, then you're always going to do what you feel. You're always going to live in carnality. You're always going to live according to your emotions and what you think and what this person said, because you're not living in truth. Once you're living in truth, you are humble enough to say, I don't know everything. I don't understand everything, but I trust God. And if God says I need to do this, then I will look to him for help. I will open up myself to say, Lord, here I am. Here's a problem. Please take it from my hand, and allow God to help you to forgive, because you may think you have to do it by yourself and you have no idea how to. It's a work of God in your heart, but you have to give that okay to say, I want to forgive him. The third way that you can heal your marriage is by remembering why you fell in love. Why? What was it about your husband that made you want to marry him? What was it about the relationship that made you believe that this is the one? Why did you fall in love with him? And maybe you didn't fall in love with him before you got married. Maybe you fell in love with him afterwards. Was there any point in time that you actually fell in love with your husband? Can you remember how you used to see him? Did he do something that completely changed how you see him and you can no longer see him in that light? Can you now see him in a new one though? That's the question. He can't go back in time. If he did something that is so offensive to you that you cannot ever see him the way you used to see him, then, in some respects, okay, but perhaps it could be possible that you are still holding on to some kind of grudge, or you are judging him in a way. Or maybe you were seeing him through rose-colored glasses that weren't even real in the first place. And so your expectations were so high that of course he can't look like the Prince Charming you imagine he was. But that's beautiful, because you're in a position now to accept him as the man he is and love him by choice, not because of a fantasy, not because you thought that he was going to be perfect, not because you thought that he was going to make your life better. I was just talking to a woman yesterday, and she was telling me that she's so miserable and she just wants to be married. And she started talking about this man that she hopes she can date. And I said, are you sure you're interested in him? Because you've never been interested in him before. And she said, Michelle, he will make my life better. He will make me happy. He will bring me the happiness that I'm lacking. And I said, oh my goodness, let me go warn this man. It's just complete craziness. A person cannot make you happy, and a person cannot change your reality. If you are unhappy, miserable, in a situation where you feel like your life is lacking and you think that having this man is going to completely shift that, you are wrong. So a lot of times when we do try to remember why we were in love with him, it's because we were in love with a fantasy, or we were in love with the excitement of what was to come, what was to be. And that feeling is what sparked the in-love feelings. But the in-love feelings are not enough to drive a marriage. There has to be an intentional decision to love him, to be in love with him, right? And this is you taking time to actually watch your husband, realize his strengths, thank God for him, thank God for what God is going to do in the marriage. Thank God for allowing you to experience these things to shape you into the person that you are today. I think it's absolutely important for you to be in love with your husband, but it's important for you to start thinking about things that he is, things that he does, things that he thinks that you do like, that you can, create a form of gratitude for. Because oftentimes the reason we're miserable is because we're ungrateful. We have this perception of what we think is ideal. And if he falls short of that, then we think we're losing, we're lacking. We don't have the man that we deserve. But I don't think anyone really feels like that unless they decide to intentionally be grateful for what they have in terms of who he actually is. Loving the way he thinks, loving the fact that he cares about grooming himself so that he can be presentable, loving the fact that he enjoys learning and growing, loving the fact that he is so great with children or animals, loving the fact that he is a forward thinker, always considering, what could be, or he loves social justice and he's always standing up for what's right. Certain qualities in him, being a hard worker, taking care of his body, being loving and kind, supporting you financially in every single way, being generous. I mean, there are so many beautiful qualities that men have that women completely overlook because we're only focused on a few qualities. So you are invoking your own feelings of love by being grateful for the person that he is. Another way that you can bring healing to your marriage is by admitting when you're wrong. And I know I just touched on this in the first point, but this is actually something that men need to hear. Many men, believe it or not, are quite patient when it comes to women. And a lot of times our husbands brush things off because they have to stay focused on life. But they wish that you would have enough self-awareness to be able to at least know when you're actually wrong. And there are so many jokes about the wife always being right and the husband always having to concede to the wife and having to just be wrong, just be wrong, just be wrong. She's always right. How to have a happy marriage. She's always right, right? But in reality, that's not true. In reality, what they're saying is let her be right. Let her win. Allow her to feel like she's right. But that's actually very harmful. And a man who is a good husband, a wonderful masculine man who fears God, is not going to just let you be right just for your own ego. He is going to tell you you're wrong. And if you're a woman who is truly healthy emotionally and you are working on becoming the whole beautiful woman that you are, you should not want a man who is going to always let you be right. Of course, it depends on how he says things in terms of how it makes you feel. But he should point out when you're wrong because that doesn't help you. And he's the leader. He's the one responsible for the family. If you're wrong, you need to know you're wrong. And if he allows you to just, fine, think you're right or just be in your mess, then it's time for you to tell him, listen, honey, I know for the last 4 months, I've been spending all my time on the phone with Patricia. I don't even acknowledge you when you come home. I'm just caught up in my friendships. I'm caught up in myself. And I'm sorry about that. I haven't been the wife that you deserve. I haven't been the wife that I know I should be. I haven't been the wife that I know God would be happy with. And that's going to change now. You have your own personal circumstances. I don't know what they are, but you do. You know what you need to apologize for. It can be you being disrespectful to him. It can be something that happened 25 years ago. It didn't just happen. It happened years ago, but he always remembers that because men do. Men have a certain way of holding on to offense. And if they're not married to you, they will dump you. They will leave you. But if they are married to you, they have to just kind of push it down. They have a very hard time with disrespect. And if a man is disrespected enough, he will make the marriage hell and you probably won't know why. You won't know what you're doing wrong, but it doesn't mean it's okay. You may need to go back and admit that you're wrong and tell him that you have changed. You have seen that you have faults and you recognize that and you are willing to now shift your behavior and you apologize. You apologize for the way that your behavior has made him feel. Maybe a person passed away and you've been so caught up in that grief that you have ignored him. And you may feel completely legitimate about being able to be sad. You lost someone. But it doesn't mean it was okay to completely shut your husband out of that. So these things have to be acknowledged by you coming forth and saying, listen, I was wrong. You are part of your marriage. You are 1 and 2 in your marriage. You drive it too with your behavior and your words and your choices. So make the choice to be bold enough, to be strong enough, and be willing enough to admit when you're wrong. Another way that you can bring healing to your marriage, my love, is by getting the help that you need. There are certain areas in your marriage that you know are a struggle for you. This can be something personal and internal, or it could be something like practical. Maybe you struggle with getting upset too quickly, and you have triggers, and there are so many of them, and you just seem to always be in a bad mood. There's a term that's usually referred to for mothers. It's not a medical condition, but it's like a state of being, and it's called DMS, depleted motherhood syndrome, where moms are just burned out and they become like very depressed and just withdrawn, and they just don't know how to ever find themselves again. But I find that this also is common with marriage. There's DMS for marriage too, depleted marriage syndrome, where you are just tired. Your wife life is tiring, and it is hard for you to show up as the joyful, happy, feminine wife that you want to be because you're tired. You're working all the time. You're cooking, you're cleaning, you're helping the children, you're trying to be sexy, you're doing all this stuff, and it is draining. And a lot of times you need help. You need help to figure out, okay, what can be changed? What can be shifted? A lot of times you might just have to talk to someone. There could be a therapist to help you. You may need some sort of like companionship. You may need more friendships. You need to talk to God about this, but there may be things you actually need. You might need someone to come and clean your house for you. Some of you are doing too much. You might need someone who can be a live-in cook, or someone who can make a few meals per week. They don't have to make every meal. You can just have dinners made. It's less expensive than eating out every day, and it's healthier, and it can be curated to your family's needs. You can find different things for every single area in your life if you search it out, if you seek it. So this is one of those things that you do have to go to God for, because only God can put a spotlight on the areas in your life that really can be shifted that maybe you're not even aware of. Sometimes we know, like, yeah, we need help with the kids. We need a babysitter or a nanny, a live-in nanny, right? Or it can be something where you just don't know. You don't know what it is. And God will help you with all of that. In the Word of God, in the chapter Matthew, chapter 7, the word says, keep asking and it will be given to you. Keep searching and you will find. Keep knocking and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and for the one who searches finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. This is a very important scripture because the Lord is saying that you must keep asking. Whatever is happening in your marriage, don't give up. Keep on knocking. Keep on knocking and keep on seeking and keep on searching. But this also speaks to the fact that you also have something to do. You have a role in this. You also need to be the one that is able to ask questions, ask and seek out things. And it's not just with God, but with the world, whatever your situation is. If you're struggling in a certain area, you need to be the one that goes out and looks for it, that seeks it, that searches it. And when you do, God is so gracious that He will allow you to find it. He will allow you to have the door open to you, to have the answer to what you need. So yes, it's also about seeking the Lord, but when God talks to you, He's going to talk to you through situations and through people and through circumstances, and you have to have your eyes open and say, oh, that's what I need. That's what I need. Or you have to be willing to be able to have a conversation with a woman who you might feel intimidated by because she's so beautiful, but she has the answer to your question. Instead of hating on her and saying like, who does she think she is? On her Instagram page, you can actually take time to listen to what she's saying because it can be the answer to your prayers. Do not shut people out. God is going to send you people in different formats, and He's going to have your prayers answered, but you do have to be part of that process. You have to be willing to talk to a financial coach, to talk to someone about getting your hair done and actually go and get your hair done, or take time to figure out what hairstyle will actually look good on you. If you have whatever the issue is, He will bring you the answer, but you do have a part in that by seeking and searching and knocking and asking. Another way that you can heal your marriage is by taking care of yourself. This is something that we don't do enough as women. And as much content as I create on this, it's not ever enough because it just sounds good. But do you actually do it? So many women don't take care of themselves. And I'm not talking about just putting on makeup or putting on a cute little wig and some high heels. I'm talking about caring for yourself, caring about what you're going through, caring about what your body is going through, what your skin is going through, just like the small things that we don't even pay attention to until it gets so bad. Oftentimes, we as women don't pay attention to our bodies until it gets so out of control, whether it's our weight or it's a health concern. A lot of us don't care enough about our mental health and our soul and our spirit. So we're not taking time to be with God and ask God about our marriage and ask God, Lord, I'm really having a hard time praying for my husband because I think he's a jerk and he doesn't deserve prayer. He doesn't deserve anything good. I need help. I know you don't want this for me. You don't want me to look at him like this. Can you help me? A lot of times we may think that our husband's up to no good or we don't trust him. And instead of talking to God about that, instead of being with God and just being in his presence, resting in God, taking care of ourselves, like this is something you're walking around with every day, this heaviness in your heart because this guy's in the bathroom all the time for hours and you're like, who is he talking to? Or he's disappearing or he's moving money around and you're like, something is off. Or he's just not affectionate with you. All of a sudden, he only wants to kiss you on your forehead. And it's like, what is up with you, right? There's these things that are happening and you're picking up on them, but you're not actually focused on shifting that. You clearly can't do anything about it. You can't nag him to death, but you can shift it. You can shift it in the spirit by spending time with God and laying your burdens upon him, casting your cares upon him. Because he cares for you. The Lord says to cast your cares upon me, meaning give it to him. And when you give something to someone, you're not holding on to it. It's not like, okay, here, we're gonna give it to him. That means you're giving it away. It's not yours anymore. You're telling God, I need help with this and I can't deal. Here you go. Help me. And he will. He knows what's going on anyway, but he wants you to ask. He wants you to cast it because that shows trust. It shows faith. And that is one of the points that I wanted to add to this is that if you want to heal your marriage, you need the glue of God. You need God in your marriage. Two people coming together and becoming one and living in the same household and trying to get along and make decisions and love one another is very difficult. And that's why some people will say, oh, it's unnatural. It's unnatural to only have one person. It is not unnatural. It is the will of God. And he's the one who created it. But if you want to experience supernatural miracles, changes in your marriage you could never expect, your husband speaking to you in a nice tone, who is he? Like, who is this guy? You don't ever talk to me like that. What's going on with you? Those are miracles. When God places supernatural miracles upon your marriage, this is something that should be expected when you are glued to God, when you have God in the center of your marriage. And this can be you and your husband praying together, going to church together, allowing trusted people in your church, like your pastor or people who are placed in positions of leadership to be involved in your marriage. If you're struggling with something, being open and talking to your husband and saying, hun, I think we should talk to the pastor about this. Maybe he can speak some life into this area. And involving God in all capacities into your marriage. Fasting shifts the spirit world. Fasting can completely change your marriage. I'm going to actually do a video on this specifically because I believe the answer to some of your prayers lies in a fast. The fact that you have never fasted for your husband or for your marriage is why you are completely in the dark and you don't know why your marriage is just in shambles. So fasting, praying for him, but also just being open to hearing from God about everything in your marriage. Letting God take hold of your tongue as soon as you're about to say something and you know you probably shouldn't say it. And God says, don't say that, girl. Don't say that. And you just say, you know what? I'm going to say it. And you say it anyway. You're not allowing God to be the glue. God can put your marriage right back together, and He will do it. He will do it with your obedience and with your want and will for Him to heal you. One of my favorite scriptures is when the angel of the Lord was speaking to Mary, Jesus' mother, about the fact that she was going to be pregnant with the Messiah. And he said to her, "Blessed is she who has believed that the Lord would fulfill His promises to her." And that is such a powerful, powerful message. But one thing I love about it is the fact that he said that you are blessed because you believe that God is going to fulfill the things that He promised you. And why is that a blessing? Why is it a blessing to believe? It's a blessing to believe because you have hope. You have faith that you know this thing is going to be accomplished. So just because of the fact that you have hope and you have faith and you believe it because it's already happened to you in your mind, you are blessed. You're blessed because you can now live in that. If you know something is going to happen without a shadow of a doubt, you believe it, then you are blessed because now you can live in that reality. If the Lord tells you, "Cynthia, you're going to get the job. I got it for you. Like, it's signed and sealed. It's done." You're going to be so happy. Like, yes, I got the job. You haven't even gotten the email yet, but God told you and you know in your spirit you have the job. You're blessed. Now you don't have to worry this weekend. You don't have to stress. You can go to the beach. You can have a barbecue. You're happy you got the job. And that's why you're blessed. You don't have to mope and be worried the whole weekend. You can enjoy your life because you believe that God will fulfill the promises to you. And that's the same hope I want you to have in your marriage. I want you to be blessed because you believe that the Lord will fulfill His promises to you. And when you took that oath on the altar with your husband and you laid on the altar of God your marriage and He blessed it, that He will fulfill everything that He said He would do by your obedience and your trust in Him. And I pray that God just places His hand upon your marriage and Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior, is able to draw you to Him and heal every broken part of your marriage today. I do have one last point, but I will save that for my podcast, and you can listen at The Dr. Daff Show on all podcast platforms. That's my baby, so I gotta go. I love you all so much, and I thank you so much for listening to this message and being here today. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.